Hello, and welcome back to Rose Red Studios. We are doing a kind of fun bonus episode this month because it is May, which means it's Mermay. This is a annual drawing challenge that basically involves drawing mermaids. I'm talking about a bit more in the video what that entails and the inspiration for my mermaid piece. This is basically going to be a digital drawing video. I wanted to experiment a bit with some new pens that I got, and I go through that whole process of how I created this digital piece. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments how your digital drawing and coloring is going.
Okay then, let's get started. This is digital coloring, so I already have the concept in place, which we'll talk about in a minute. I am going to go through all the steps I'm doing, which right now I'm just testing out colors to see what color I want to start with. I have filmed the majority of this process that you're going to see, although some of it I have fast forwarded through just so you don't get stuck doing things in real time, because this took about an hour and 25 minutes to do the whole thing start to finish. To start with, right now I am realizing that I don't like the outline pen that I used. It was too streaky. So I am duplicating the layer 3 times to make it have a much stronger line weight. So I just did that, combined those layers so that the outline is still just one layer. Then the next step for this is I am going to create another layer and do all of the color on a separate layer underneath the line layer. And I do this by using the selection tool and having it on color fill. So basically I can just go through, and you want to make sure that you are on a separate layer. What I cut out from this video was the first time I did this, I did it on top of the line layer, which blacks out the line layer, then you can't see the line layer. So number one thing, create a second layer, put that underneath the line layer, then go to your selection tool, and I'm basically just tracing over everything that I want to be filled in with that solid color. Now my goal overall here for this project is to have it look like gouache. I did get a gouache set as part of another new pen set that I bought. I was buying it for other reasons. The gouache set just came along with it. I thought, okay, that could be fun. And then I saw some paintings online, some like character paintings done with gouache, and I really love them. What you can't see is like off screen, I have a couple of different examples of characters done with gouache to kind of give me an idea of how to like shade and texture and like what I could do with it. But I'm going to use gouache brushes to create that effect, hopefully. But the first thing we want is to just block out all of the color and have the whole background just be color blocks for the individual little pieces. So that's what I am doing with color fill. I am doing Ice Planet Barbarians. If anybody knows this book, you will note the reference I'm using is the cover for the book, and the main character of the first book, who's kind of like sets it all up, Georgie. I love this book series, and it is the 10-year anniversary for the book series this year. It came out in April of 2015 originally, although it did not hit its stride until 2020. That is when kind of everything took off for Ruby Dixon, the author, and this became a just an epic bestseller, especially for a self-published author. Now she has the entire series purchased by a publishing company that is reintroducing them out like at a rate of I think 2 to 3 a year, with brand new covers and little extras added into it. This is based off of the cover for the new edition of book 1, and it's Mermay, so had to do something fun. This actually was inspired by the fact that day 2 of Mermay, which is today, the prompt was cosmic, so I kind of wanted to mash up that with, Ice Planet Barbarians, for anyone who doesn't know, is science fiction. You have a group of human women taken away from Earth, and they crash land on a icy planet, and it all goes from there. That is why you do see a little flying saucer up in the corner there. That is a reference to the story itself, because Ruby Dixon is a fan of classic science fiction, and in consequence, we get some classic science fiction references in her book. Here I'm just kind of speeding up the process of putting down the flat layers, since you probably don't want to go at real-time speed with me on that one. Mermay is an annual drawing challenge. There's a Mermay official on Instagram that you can go on to and see all the different prompts that they have scheduled for this year. They have a new prompt for every day of the month. I am not doing every single day. I don't have time for that this year, but I did want to do one, and I just thought this would be like a fun mashup between the two, since this is the 10-year anniversary of Ice Planet Barbarians. So here I am again, just laying out all of those flat colors. I am staying true to the character on the cover of the book. Georgie has lovely wavy brown hair. And also, like, the blue colors are kind of the theme of the book. Like, all of the covers have very, variations of this icy blue feeling. Because I am mashing up that with Mermay, I kind of wanted the background to be a little bit like, is it oceany or is it sky? So that's kind of the themes I'm going for with this one. I am going to just let the music play while we finish up these flats, because that will just take a few more minutes, and you can see how we do that. Alright, so let's go ahead and figure out that background. I'm just going to go ahead and grab the background layer itself and try to find the perfect blue for that. Again, we're going for a mashup between the ocean, some ocean vibes for our mermaid, and then also kind of a science fiction-y, spacey sky. As a Doctor Who fan, this is the time when we say spacey, wacy, timey-wimey. Anyway, so obviously for this, because I am just practicing as I go with things. There's a lot of me testing and playing with different colors. I did want things to be a little bit more ice blue, obviously, rather than the more greenish blue colors that we use a lot of time as mermaids. Here we are going to start. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Apparently I did not color it, fill the spaceship. Okay, that has been done now. Next, we're going to go in and we are going to start playing with the gouache pens. So this is the exciting time. I am going to start out just kind of like testing some of these pens and seeing what texture they create, because I kind of want the background to have a little bit of a, you know, a hazy, soft feel to it. So I have not tried any of these pens yet. I'm kind of just going through each one, testing out different colors. Also testing out to see like what it looks like if I'm going to use these to give some texture to her clothes. In the books, as also kind of described in are shown on the covers, their clothes are all made out of, you know, fur from the various animals, very science fiction-y animals that they find on this ice planet. So here, okay, I decided to start with the fur cuffs on her shirt. I found a nice, fun, rough textured pen. I am just letting myself color out of the lines with this one because I don't want to like get hung up on trying to keep it in the lines. I want like the fluffy texture of the fur to be what is important, and making the texture inside of the lines is what looks good. So I'm letting myself draw outside of the lines because that is the beauty of digital drawing. You can just go back and erase whatever you don't want, and it does not damage anything. I did do 2 colors for the fur. I did a base color and then I went back and did a lighter color just to give it a little extra texture. I'm kind of drawing this whole thing as if the light is coming from the side with the spaceship. It doesn't, I think, really matter where your light is coming from with a lot of things, like especially like this where there's no sun. I just wanted to have a direction where my highlights were coming from so that it would be consistent throughout. All the highlights are coming from the same direction. So now I can just go back. Well, I guess at this point, I guess I could go back and fix all of the highlights because for some reason I didn't like those particular highlights. Okay, now I can just go back and do erasing. I mean, and this is the important part. I don't know if I noted up front that I did a separate layer for these details. So that is super important in digital drawing. You want to make sure that as everything is separated into layers, because now I can go through and erase and clean up all of these details and I am not damaging the layer underneath. I do have an iPad Pro which allows me to create a lot of layers. I'm trying not to like just be completely frivolous with the number of layers I create, but I do have an iPad Pro and that means I can do a lot of layers. So, you know, you work with what you got, and I have a lot of layers available to me. Anyway, so we're going to go through, we're going to erase out anything that does not suit us. Taking a quick drink. This is important. Now we are going to do a new layer. This time we're going to start giving some texture to the clothes. I tried out a couple of different brushes and a couple of different sizes because I wanted to have some texture but not be like crazy. You know, I wanted the fluffiness around her, the fringes of her jacket to be like where the main texture is coming from. And this area is more just about shading and highlighting. Again, one of the beauties of doing this on digital is that I can practice a bunch of different styles. Next, I'm gonna give some texture to these stars. Again, this is something I'm more pulling from my reference, is to give like these huge outlines that are using a higher grain brush, I guess, something that has way more texture, and using that as a background behind the smoother line layer. In my references, I just liked how this looked, and so I decided to go for it. I ended up doing 2 color layers here, so you'll see this is the first one where I did a brighter color just to help these pop against the background, and then I went back under that, you'll see here in a second. Oh yes, I also did the spaceship because spaceship is important. Then I went and did another layer where I did a slightly darker layer, or slightly darker color, still much lighter than the background color, but darker than the first underlaying, and then I went through and did that all again. And I actually just really liked how this looked overall. I thought it gave it a nice good punch. I did want this to have a very like graphic, illustrated look. I'm not going for any realism here, guys. We are doing Ice Planet Barbarian mermaids. Okay, we don't do realism right now. That is not where we are at. Anyway, I liked the effect that this had. Next, we are going to actually fill in the background. You're going to see me do a lot of brush practicing at this phase. I just wanted, also here's the thing. When you have a new brush set, you have to try all of them. You have to see what they all do. I maintained myself and didn't do every single one, but I did keep going until I found one that gave me the hazy background that I was looking for. I want there to be lots of texture in the background, but I don't want any of it to be super defined. I want it to kind of just be blocks of color floating through the background. And so I wanted a really soft edge brush for that. You will see, definitely for the background, but you'll see this throughout, I am not doing any color fill techniques like the drop and drag at this stage. Obviously I did color fill before, although I don't really like the drop and drag color fill option. I find I always have issues with that, which is why I do the selection tool color fill. But once I finished that layer of flat color, from then on you'll see me doing what I'm doing right here, where I'm actually coloring it in with the brush rather than doing a drop and drag or color fill. That is because this brush has a lot of texture to it, and so it leaves the texture as I'm coloring. So it's not going to completely fill up. You're going to still see some of that background color behind it because it's a highly textured brush and I have it kind of blown up larger. So that's just one of the things that I like to do at this stage, to give the image a little bit more of a original art feel or traditional art feel. Traditional art is going to have some of those colors coming through. It's going to have a little raw roughness to it. And so that's just one thing I do when I want it to feel a little more painterly. It is something that as a digital painter I had to kind of work through, because at first the idea of having these perfectly crisp lines really appealed to me as somebody who can be a bit weird about these things and loves perfectly smooth things. But I did realize that was lending a very digital feel to the pieces that were feeling kind of uncanny in a way, and I didn't like the end results. And once I was able to find brushes that had more of a natural feel to them, I just felt like my art improved because of that. So I don't use any of the technical pens that come with the Procreate packs. I will sometimes use the monoline for dialogue bubbles and things like that, but anything else I draw, I'm using one that has some kind of grain to the actual brush. And this is kind of finding the perfect place for me, because it's a battle to find that, because I do feel like a lot of brushes that people make for Procreate have too much grain, and I think it's distracting how much texture and raw edges that it creates. So there is a level of finding that balance. a brush that has a grain to it, and so it doesn't feel overly digital, but it's also just not a mess. So people get real into making messy brushes, and I'm not a fan. This here is a little effects brush that I got as just like a bonus in a pack that I found. And I don't use things like this very often, but when I do, when I have a chance, I'm all in. I am all in to try the fun brushes. I liked this one in particular because it could be stars or it could be bubbles. And this might be the only time that this brush is perfect for the drawing, but you know what? We have it for this moment. The time has come to add some skin texture for Georgie. Again, I am looking at references of different character designs done using gouache, and so I'm using that as kind of the template for how I'm going to go ahead and shade this character. I did use the liner brush in the gouache pack to do these details, and then additionally I set the smudge tool in Procreate to the liner brush that I was using to put the original lines in, so that if I wanted to go in and smudge it, it would smudge it with a similar texture to the brush that's drawing it. I don't think that's always necessary, but I wanted it to just have a little bit more texture. Than I had the blender set to like this really soft blend, and when I was playing around with it, I felt like it was just kind of wiping out the image. So there you can see I chose the liner for the smudge. So this way I could smudge things a little bit so the lines wouldn't be so hard, but it wasn't just like turning it into a blur. It still had some texture to it. Again, because we're trying to replicate, at least have some level of it feeling like traditional paint. And so it would have more of a little bit of a raw edge to it. now we're about to start my absolute favorite part of this painting, and that is her hair. I don't know why, I just had a ton of fun doing her hair on this. When I was looking at my reference pictures, I noticed that the artist who I was following for this used like 3 different colors to draw in the hair. And again, you're seeing me like actually color in these spaces that might, like, I normally might do a color fill on, but I want that texture. So I'm hand coloring it in. Anyway, she was using 3 colors primarily, and a couple edges, 4, but 3 colors to kind of create the texture of the hair. And what I loved was it was like, I wasn't doing lines throughout the entire body of the hair. You can create that textury feel just with a few precise lines. So for in this case, because Georgie's hair is a bit wavy, we're just putting some lines in specifically where her waves are. And again, the person whose reference I was using for hair was doing 3 different colors, all at the same location with the curls. And I thought it looked really cool, so I decided to just give it a try. And like, this is my new favorite way to do hair. I actually, like, overall truly loved how this painting came out, and I'm like it was just like such a whim. Like, I want to experiment with, coloring with like a gouache style, and so I picked some references that were done in gouache and just went with it. And I love it so much that I kind of want to find a way to incorporate this more into like regular work that I do. I don't know that it will. I honestly don't know if I can incorporate it. Maybe this was just like, I got to enjoy this day with these with these brushes and this style, but it was so much fun. And once I started doing this hair, like, I know the whole thing started to come together for me. So yeah, I am going to actually explore this style some more and see what can be done, especially now that I have a gouache brush set. I've actually been wanting a I've actually been wanting a gouache brush set for a while, and I just really couldn't randomly justify buying just a gouache set when I knew I wasn't going to work in it very often. And like I said, this one just happened to come with another set that a bundle I actually bought because it had some anatomy stuff that I'm trying to learn how to do anatomy with, and this was like a throw in. You also get gouache brushes, and I'm really glad that came with it because it has been a lot of fun to use, and I am very interested in trying to find more ways to use these brushes. Of note, this is me forgetting where my arbitrary light source is coming from and putting the highlight in the entirely wrong location, and then having to go back, undo it and redo it where it would make sense. All right, now we are going to have some real fun here with the mermaid's tail. I am not going to go through and draw out each individual fin because my wrist does not like doing things like that. I will hurt afterwards. So instead, I'm going to this brush set I have from Bardo Brushes. This is I think they're patterns. I think that's what it's called. All of these great patterns that come with that set. And lo and behold, there is a fish scale one. That honestly made doing Mermay a little bit more of an option for me, because I just can't. You will note that I'm wearing a brace while I do this. My wrist it's not down to do this anymore. It used to be, maybe like 5 years ago, it was all about doing the details. This day and age, we just don't do details like that. So we have amazing tools like this. And yes, you have to kind of just do it in one sweeping motion to make it work, in which case you make it a separate layer. You do the one sweeping motion to go over the shape that you want to fill in with your with the pattern, the texture, and then I just go back in and erase it like I did with the furry texture on the trim. So this is its own separate layer, and we're going to go through and erase it, and then I'm going to do the next layer will be a layer underneath between the flat color and the pattern, the fish scale pattern. I'll have a layer in between basically that will be where we do all of the shading and highlighting for the scales, and that is much easier than drawing in each individual scale. All right, now that we've got that fin mostly to where we want it, we're gonna go in and have some real fun with some fun brushes. This is a brush from Big Pearloo, I believe is the name of the creator of it. We're gonna put some nice, fun, little bright star points throughout, because again, we're not sure if this is the ocean or if it is a starry night out in the galaxy. We're going for both. In case you haven't wondered, this is largely an excuse for me to use brushes that I rarely get a chance to use. And the star brush is really fun. I have done Ice Planet Barbarian art from time to time, and this one always comes out because it's a really fun little brush that doesn't show up a lot in my work. I don't have a lot of reason. Honestly, for my like weekly work, when I'm working on the Casey comic, it's A Working Dog's Life, I call it the Casey comic. The title of it does have a title. It's A Working Dog's Life. But it's a very simplistic style, and so I really don't get to use much of my brushes. The only brush I really use is the gloaming brush in the drawing set because, again, I'm looking for something that has like line weight to it and has some texture. But that's pretty much it. That and monoline for speech troubles. And so I have like all of these fun little brushes that have come through different sets I've gotten throughout the years that I need to find myself excuses to use. And this was the one where I got to use the little star brush. And it's pretty easy to just kind of like make it and make the star shapes and then move them around however you want. You'll see me zooming in and out because it's really important at this stage to kind of like look at the piece as a whole and not get super trapped in just looking at it and the close-up specs of it, because sometimes that can lead to just over manipulating when you're not looking at as a whole. So yes, zoom in to do your detail work because that's how we get the detail work done, but also like regularly zoom out to look at the piece as a whole, especially at this stage when it's pretty much done. So like you can see here, like I pulled out, I didn't like the stars just being super bright white. I wanted them to have a little extra texture, so I threw some of that on last minute. This is a good stage to make sure that you're like pulling in and out regularly and you're not getting too lost in the details, because this picture has a lot of details, but it can also have too many details. It is very easy to have too many details in a design like this. So pulling in and out, great way to let you know, like, how is my composition looking? Am I getting out of control? Or am I honestly missing something? Because it's okay to have details in something like this. Like, you want the details. It's just finding that perfect balance. This is me briefly considering adding more detail to Georgie's eyes. It is something I experimented with and quickly decided against. It is one of the great joys of digital art. You can experiment with things and decide, nope, that just does not work at all for this. And here is a final look. Thank you for joining me for this digital drawing session. I hope maybe if you like to enjoy digital drawing, this helped a little bit with something. If you want to get some close-ups of it, I have this up on my Instagram account. Thanks for joining me.